15 historical facts that will blow your brain. Number 15, the dancing plague of 1518. In July 1518, something very strange happened in Strasbourg, a town in modern-day France. A woman named Frau Trophea suddenly began dancing in the street and couldn't stop. Days went by, and instead of stopping, she kept moving as if in a trance. Soon, others joined her, as if they had been infected by this dancing spell. By the end of the month, over 400 people were dancing uncontrollably. Some people danced so much that they collapsed from exhaustion, and a few even died. It was like the town was cursed with a bizarre urge to dance. Experts today still aren't sure what caused this event. Some believe it was due to ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic fungus that can grow on rye bread, making people act strangely. Others think it was mass hysteria, where people were so stressed by hunger and disease that they began to act out in strange ways. Although many ideas have been proposed, no one knows exactly what caused the dancing plague. This strange and tragic event remains one of the biggest mysteries in history. Number 14, the overcrowded cemeteries and the rise of ossuaries. In medieval Europe, cemeteries quickly ran out of space as towns and cities grew. When graveyards became full, people had to find new ways to handle the remains of the deceased. This led to the creation of ossuaries, which are places designed to store bones. One of the most famous ossuaries is the Catacombs of Paris, a vast underground maze where over 6 million people's bones were carefully placed. Walking through the catacombs today feels eerie, with walls lined by countless skulls and bones. Ossuaries were a practical but spooky solution to the overcrowding problem. By storing bones instead of bodies, they could make room for more burials above ground. This practice wasn't just limited to Paris. Other places in Europe also built ossuaries to manage their limited cemetery space. Today, these bone-filled spaces serve as haunting reminders of history, attracting visitors who are curious about life, death, and how past societies dealt with these issues. Number 13, the British used to sell their wives. In the 18th and 19th centuries, getting a divorce in Britain was expensive and difficult. As a workaround, some men chose to sell their wives instead. This unusual practice involved taking their wife to a public place, such as a market, and transferring her to another man, often in exchange for money. Although it sounds shocking, it was seen as an unofficial form of divorce, allowing both partners to move on with their lives. Many times, the wife agreed to the arrangement, as it was a way out of an unhappy marriage. The practice of wife selling might seem harsh today, but back then, it was surprisingly common. Divorce was so costly that only the rich could afford it, and for poorer couples, wife selling was an affordable solution. While the law did not officially recognize these transactions, local communities sometimes accepted them. This practice faded by the late 1800s as divorce laws became more accessible, but it remains a strange chapter in British history. Number 12, heroin once sold as a cough medicine. In the late 1800s, the drug we now know as heroin was originally sold as a safe, non-addictive treatment for various ailments. In 1898, the German company Bayer began marketing heroin as a cough medicine and pain reliever. It was believed to be a safer alternative to morphine, which had already shown signs of addiction. For a time, heroin was widely used to treat everything from sore throats to tuberculosis symptoms, and people trusted it because it was sold by a respected company. However, doctors and patients soon noticed that heroin was highly addictive. Over time, its dangers became impossible to ignore, and the government banned it in 1924. What started as a promising new medicine quickly turned into a major health crisis. This story is a reminder of how even trusted medicines can have hidden dangers, showing us the importance of careful testing and understanding drugs before using them widely. Number 11, the Great Emu War of 1932. In 1932, Australia faced an unusual problem. Thousands of emus were destroying crops. To solve it, the government sent soldiers armed with machine guns to try and reduce the emu population. This strange event became known as the Great Emu War. However, despite the soldiers' best efforts, the emus proved to be surprisingly difficult targets. The birds were fast and resilient, and they often managed to escape the gunfire, leaving the soldiers frustrated. After several failed attempts to control the emus, the government finally admitted defeat. The emus won the war, and the operation was called off. Although it sounds humorous today, the Emu War was a serious effort at the time, with farmers desperate to save their crops. It's remembered as a quirky and somewhat embarrassing episode in Australian history. Number 10. Books bound in human skin. During the 17th and 18th centuries, a strange and disturbing practice emerged in the world of bookbinding. Some books were bound using human skin. Known as anthropodermic bibliophagy, this technique was rare but did occur, especially for books related to crime, law, or anatomy. Sometimes the skin used came from executed criminals, while other times it was donated by people who wished to make a unique contribution after death. These books were often seen as curiosities, collected by doctors or wealthy individuals intrigued by the macabre. Today, very few of these books remain, but the ones that do are carefully preserved in libraries and museums. Historians and collectors view them as rare pieces of history that reveal humanity's fascination with mortality. While the practice might seem gruesome now, it reflects a time when death was viewed differently, and people sought unusual ways to preserve knowledge. These books remain haunting reminders of an era when death and science were closely intertwined. Number 9. The Pig War. In 1859, a pig triggered a conflict between the United States and the British Empire, known as the Pig War. It all began on the San Juan Islands, a group of islands between what is now Canada and the United States. An American farmer shot a British settler's pig that was eating his potatoes, leading to a dispute. Both sides sent military forces to the area, with soldiers from the US and British Canada preparing for a possible battle over this small incident. Thankfully, no human lives were lost, and the war was settled peacefully through negotiations. The Pig War is remembered as a humorous yet strange moment in history when two powerful nations nearly went to war over a pig. Today, it serves as a reminder of how misunderstandings can sometimes escalate, but also how diplomacy can prevent conflicts from spiraling out of control. Number 8. The Battle of the Tomatoes. Every year in Buñol, Spain, thousands of people gather to take part in a massive food fight known as La Tomatina. This unique tradition started in 1945 when a group of friends began throwing tomatoes at each other during a festival. What began as a small, spontaneous act of fun quickly grew into an annual event with truckloads of tomatoes being brought in for participants to hurl at each other. During the event, the streets are covered in red, and everyone is soaked in tomato juice, creating a chaotic yet festive atmosphere. La Tomatina has since become famous around the world, attracting visitors from many countries who want to experience this one-of-a-kind event. Participants wear old clothes and protective goggles, knowing they will leave the festival drenched in tomato pulp. Although it may seem wasteful, the tomatoes used are typically overripe and not suitable for sale. This festival is a fun, energetic celebration, showing how a simple food fight can unite people in laughter and enjoyment. Number 7. The Shortest War in History. The shortest war in history occurred on August 27, 1896, between the British Empire and the Sultanate of Zanzibar. The conflict began when the Sultan of Zanzibar took the throne without British approval, challenging their influence in the region. In response, the British gave him an ultimatum to surrender, but he refused. Just 38 minutes after the first shots were fired, the Sultan surrendered, ending what is now known as the Anglo-Zanzibar War. This brief but intense conflict demonstrated the British Empire's military power at the time. With their modern weapons and naval force, they quickly overpowered Zanzibar's defenses. Today, the Anglo-Zanzibar War is a historical curiosity, known as the shortest war ever recorded. It serves as a reminder of the tense relations between colonial powers and local leaders, and how swiftly conflicts could erupt and be resolved. Number 6. The MK Ultra mind control experiments. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA ran a highly secretive project called MK Ultra, which aimed to explore mind control techniques. They conducted experiments on unwitting participants, often using drugs like LSD to see if people's behaviors could be manipulated. These tests were conducted in secret, without participants' consent, and included experiments on college students, hospital patients, and even military personnel. The goal was to see if they could alter a person's thoughts and actions, potentially creating mind-controlled spies or agents. When details of MK Ultra were finally exposed, the public was outraged. The idea that the government would experiment on its own citizens sparked a wave of distrust in authorities. The project remains one of the most controversial in American history, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. MK Ultra is still referenced today in discussions about ethics, secrecy, and government responsibility, highlighting how easily science can be misused in the wrong hands. Number 5, the bear that went to war. During World War II, Polish soldiers found an orphaned bear cub in the Middle East and decided to adopt him. They named him Wojtek, and he quickly became a beloved member of their unit, providing comfort and companionship during tough times. Wojtek was treated like one of the soldiers, even learning to stand on his hind legs and salute. He famously helped carry heavy ammunition crates during battles, symbolizing the strength and resilience of the soldiers. After the war, Wojtek retired and spent the rest of his life in the Edinburgh Zoo, where he was frequently visited by his fellow soldiers. His story touched many people and remains a heartwarming example of the bond between animals and humans. Wojtek became a symbol of loyalty and courage, showing that even in times of war, friendships can form in the most unexpected ways. His legacy lives on as a reminder of the kindness that can exist even in the darkest times. Number 4, the invention of the sandwich. The origins of the sandwich trace back to John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, an 18th century British noble known for his fondness for gambling. Legend has it that Montagu, who spent long hours engaged in card games, would often find himself reluctant to leave the game for a full meal. Instead, he devised a convenient solution. He instructed his servants to bring him slices of meat placed between 2 pieces of bread. This allowed him to continue playing without interrupting his concentration or dirtying his cards, as the bread kept his hands clean while holding the food. His fellow gamblers quickly took notice of this innovative snack and began ordering the same as sandwich. Over time, this phrase was shortened, and the dish simply became known as a sandwich. What started as a convenient meal for an aristocrat soon spread beyond the gambling tables, as the sandwich's practicality and portability made it a popular choice among the working class, travelers, and eventually people worldwide. Today, the sandwich has evolved into a culinary staple with countless variations, symbolizing convenience, versatility, and creativity in cuisine. Number 3, the Bubonic Plague and the Birdbeak masks. In the midst of the 14th century Bubonic Plague, also known as the Black Death, doctors in Europe began wearing eerie bird-like masks with long, beak-shaped noses. These masks were stuffed with aromatic herbs, spices, and flowers, such as rosemary, juniper berries, and lavender, based on the belief that the plague was spread through miasma, or bad air. Physicians thought that the fragrant materials would purify the air they inhaled, shielding them from the deadly disease. Additionally, the mask was part of an elaborate outfit designed to protect the doctors from head to toe. They wore long, waxed cloaks, leather gloves, and wide-brimmed hats, creating a striking yet ominous image. The plague doctor's uniform, though terrifying to the public, provided minimal actual protection, as the cause of the plague, bacteria transmitted through fleas on rats, was yet unknown. The mask has since become an iconic image, symbolizing both the era's medical practices and the fear that permeated society. Its unsettling appearance has been referenced in art, literature, and even modern horror, serving as a haunting reminder of one of the most devastating pandemics in history, which claimed the lives of an estimated 25 million people across Europe. Number 2, the FBI investigated Bigfoot. In 1976, curiosity about Bigfoot reached such heights that even the FBI became involved in the investigation. It all began when a set of hair samples, believed to belong to the elusive creature, was sent to the FBI laboratory for analysis. Those who submitted the samples hoped they would provide concrete evidence of Bigfoot's existence, finally proving the creature was more than just folklore. People across the country were captivated by tales of a massive, hairy, ape-like creature lurking in remote forests, and the involvement of the FBI seemed to lend credibility to the possibility that Bigfoot might be real. The FBI's decision to examine the samples showed the extent of public interest and the agency's willingness to investigate, even if it meant entertaining what some might consider a myth. When the results came back, however, the tests revealed that the hair samples didn't belong to any unknown creature, but were identified as deer hair. While the results might have disappointed Bigfoot believers, the fact that the FBI officially looked into the matter remains a captivating moment in the history of Bigfoot lore. Number 1, The accidental discovery of Roquefort cheese. Legend has it that the distinctive Roquefort cheese was discovered entirely by accident. According to the story, a young shepherd left his lunch of bread and cheese in a cave to chase after a girl. When he returned weeks later, he found that his cheese had grown blue mold, transforming it into the unique and flavorful cheese we know today as Roquefort. The environment in the cave, with its damp, cool conditions, was perfect for the growth of the specific mold that gives Roquefort its signature taste. This accidental discovery led to the creation of one of the world's most famous blue cheeses, which is still made in the caves of Roquefort-sur-Soulzon in France. Roquefort's strong flavor and crumbly texture make it a favorite aim